We will wait for the co-chair for just a minute. Thank you. Sorry about all the live wait. All right, everybody. Corporations Committee will come to order. Roll call, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This is roll call for February 11th, 2022. Senator Boner,
Excused.
Senator Case,
Present.
Senator Nethercott. Here. Senator Scott,
Here.
Representative Blackburn. Here. Representative Clausen. Here. Representative Duncan. Here. Representative Air.
Here.
Representative Greer. Here. Representative McGuire. Here. Representative Roscoe.
Here.
Representative Yin.
Here.
Co-chairman's monitor.
Here.
Chairman Driscoll.
Here.
Senator Boner.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Have a quorum. We'll bail right into it. We'll go right into the amendments, proposed plan. Everybody's got their package, I think, and we'll just start right on the top, going through the package, which the first one is the county clerk revisions, I believe is the very top one that we've got, correct? Which will be corrections and revisions.
There were 6 that were submitted to Michael. Standard correction.
So, Michael, can you?
Mr. Chairman, are you looking for a summary of what's before you?
I am. Let's,
Mr. Chairman, since the last meeting, there were kind of two steps to the process for amending the current plans. The first two are corrections that local county clerks submitted. And those are the first two maps you see, the Plan 6 revisions and the Plan 3 revisions. And those are basically in-county or in-region revisions that did not impact other areas. The last 7 are amendments to the Plan 6, the 62 House District Plan. They came from Region 1, Laramie County, Region 3, and Region 7, a combination of Converse and Natrona County. And then Region 6, there are 3 revisions. There is one from the Campbell County Clerk, and there are 2 that were submitted by Representative Bear. And then there's 2 submitted by Representative Duncan from Region 7. All of those, other than the Natrona County one and the Laramie County one, those other 5 impact mostly the same area, the eastern counties.
Okay. So do we have anybody to present on the clerk revisions, or are they just kind of, can you tell us exactly how they work? And
Mr. Chairman, yes, I can briefly show you what they do.
what's that?
So, Mr. Chairman, on your screen is the Plan 6 map. Excuse me. And this is the new configuration based on those changes. But if you go to one of the attachments I provided that shows you the actual changes locations, they should be shaded in green on your handout. For Plan 6, let me zoom this in a little bit. So what it shows is that there were some changes in the Bighorn Basin. They rebalanced their population among, I believe, House Districts 27, 28, 26, 25, and 50. And that was to I think, better align with their election boundaries, their precinct boundaries. And then on the western side, there were changes in Teton and Lincoln County, again, at the preference of the clerks to better align with precinct boundaries. And oops, sorry. I went down too far. There we go. And then there are a couple other ones. There's one in Sweetwater County that was suggested by the clerk. And that one, the biggest difference is they basically switched the share area in Green River. They swap them between House District 18 and House District 39. And then there were a couple of precinct changes suggested by the Carbon County clerk for House District 15 and 47. Those are basically the gist of the changes. Most of them are pretty net to zero most of the time. There aren't very many population differences.
Committee questions? You don't have one. Questions, committee? I have one. I got kind of strange when I see, and our pages aren't numbered, but when we go up into Teton County Alpine, we've got and actually I've got a couple of them, but right around Etna, there's a spot that we've got, looks like a house district that just touches on corners. I get it, but do they just fit on a corner, or we actually got I can't zoom in and I can't, all I see is it looks like a classic, just 2 corners touch each other with people in it. It is Alpine Precinct 3. It says it's be about 10 pages in. It's Etna Freedom Precinct number 5, 1812.
Mic on? Is your mic on?
Apologize. This is the Etna. This is the result of the Etna changes right here that are shown on screen. There used to be a piece that was coming up through the top here, and then there was another outcropping
Okay,
here.
they fixed what I'm talking
Correct.
about. That is what they did. I'm looking at the old one. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's my bad. And I just looked at it and it looked like we've been talking about these different tongues and deals, and there was a couple of those, and the other one was by Fontenelle, and it's probably affixed the same way. It looks like we got a L-shaped piece, and I'm thinking I'm looking at a fixed map on the Fontenelle as well. It is.
Mr. Chairman, this is the school district boundary, and this was the request of Lincoln County.
Perfect. Okay, so any further discussion on the clerks? And I don't think we'll vote on any of these right now. We'll do the explanations, everything, and then we'll Mr. Co-Chairman.
Sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Swank. So there were about 5 submissions from the clerks that were minor fine-tuned touch-ups. Those have all been incorporated. And do you know if any of the clerks want to talk about those? I reviewed them real quick. They were, 3 people there and just synthesizing boundary lines. And it was my understanding they had talked to the local representatives on those changes. I guess my question is, do we need to vote on any of those that came in, or they were all from the last meeting? We said any kind of touch-ups that aren't super policy driven or large scale, we could just incorporate as long as there were no complaints.
Mr. Chairman, my understanding at the last meeting was that the final map would be approved via vote. But the direction that I received from the committee and the chairman was to, if it was not going to cross regional boundaries or impact a significant area and they were provided by the clerks, was to put them in one map. And that's what this did for the Region 6. The other areas that have amendments, those are much more comprehensive in their changes.
Yeah, that was my intent, was that these will get voted on. If you want to change them, we'll do comments on them now, but they will get voted to incorporate. And then as we work down through these other plans, they impact each other. So my intent is to have all the plans laid out and done. And then we'll do similar to what we did last meeting. We'll bring up motions on them to snap them in because they do compete with each other. I know we have Campbell County plans, Duncan's plan, not to name names, but we've got plans out there that all compete with each other. So my thoughts would be to deal with the non-controversial first. I think, i.e. the basins come up with what they want done. We're going to snap all those in. And then we'll get down to the meat at the end of where we vote, where we're going to end up at a final disposition on this. And we probably will take a break after part of them so everybody can visit a little as well. So with that, we'll step right into, what was the first one you named, Mr. Swank?
The first one is the revisions and corrections map for Plan 6.
And that's what the clerks that we talked about.
Correct.
So now, and the next one down is the Converse Natrona 3 and 7, was it? I don't have the full.
Mr. Chairman, the second map are the clerk small revisions to the Plan 3, the backup plan.
Okay,
That was the second full map with clerk revisions.
okay. Do we have anybody from the clerk's office here? Or does not appear so. You want to come up and present? See Malcolm back there. I'm sorry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Malcolm Irvin, the president of the County Clerks Association, and I apologize, I was trying to get caught up. What revisions are you looking for me to present, Mr. Chairman?
I'd like just a high level overview of what you've done. Obviously, the 3060 backup plan probably has more revisions than others because that was somewhat done. So probably just a fairly quick overview because it is a backup plan, kind of what you've done and where you were at, and if you had any comments or problems amongst it.
Mr. Chairman, starting on the 60/30 plan, there really weren't as many revisions as you would think. When Mr. Swank compiled the map, it was a lot of clerk submitted plans anyways. And so they were able to plug in. There's a couple of places in the 60/30 plan that will need to be addressed if that is the way the committee or the body as a whole goes. One of the areas of question is the Campbell Crook share. If in the 60/30, the way it stood, approximately 500 people went from Campbell into Crook, and that'll just need to be addressed whether that stays. If that stays, okay. If it doesn't, there's some revisions we need to do to adjust. But for the 60/30 plan, really not many revisions overall. For the 62/31, because it was really our first go at it as an entire group, there were quite a few more, but really nothing dramatic. It really was minor revisions that just allowed us to get some boundaries in line with existing special district boundaries and just trying to mitigate as many splits as possible. So one that's coming to mind right off the top of my head is like Converse County. There was a move to incorporate, I think it was 51 people that just followed an existing boundary a little bit better. And so it allowed for the voters to know a little bit more clearly, rather than following a school district line, here's a distinct line that we can follow, so that when they're at the polling place and they ask, why am I getting this ballot, not that ballot? The judge can explain it. It follows this road. And so, Mr. Chairman, really the clerk revisions, and I'm not seeing, I know that Representative Yin proposed some changes in the Lincoln County area, which really helped significantly. And so, and then I almost screwed that up. So I appreciate Representative Yin catching that. But Mr. Chairman, really the revisions that the clerks submitted to Mr. Swank are really pretty minor overall. And so there shouldn't be anything dramatic or really policy changing whatsoever.
Questions? Mr. Representative Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the Goshen line. That doesn't look anything like what we submitted. I thought our clerk submitted a 60-30 update. So I'm not sure if this is a correct line.
Mr. Chairman. In the 60-30, the Goshen County changes are the ones that the clerk did submit to me. Correct. I think they made it look a little bit closer to a prior map that they had developed, but this was the one that they provided to me, I think about 3 or 4 days ago.
Further questions? Senator Scott, if you're prepared, I'd like your comments. You're kind of the one that brought it, your thoughts, and then it appears you've pre-filed a 3060 as well, at least what I heard. I didn't look it up. I wanted you to comment on where we're at there, if you would.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on the pre-filed bill, I pre-filed that as a precaution so that if this committee for one reason or another didn't put the backup bill in, we'd still have a backup. And I put it in, I wanted to make sure that there was a Senate file in case our leadership needed it for any purpose. The intention is strictly backup, and if all goes well, it will sleep peacefully in committee, I hope. The only difference between it and the 60-30 plan as it stands right now is that instead of coming into Natrona County and disturbing my county commissioner, we went into Johnson County to get enough population to make the Bighorn Basin whole. I don't know whether that would stand a test or not, but the intention is pure backup. And if we amend it, it sounds like we might, the 60-30 backup plan just a little bit, which I think would be a good idea if the clerks have some things. There shouldn't be too many because it was basically the clerk submitted plans that the committee was working with. We just cut them off. I just cut them off in mid-December there and didn't adopt anything further. If we do adopt some further ones, I would ask LSO to keep those in mind, because if we keep them available, because if we did ultimately have to use the other one as a backup for some kind of reason, we'd want to do it there too. And they are at this point, they're identical except for that one change I described. So, Mr. Chairman, that's what's going on. With any luck, we won't need a backup, but I've had prior experience here where the backup was very handy and actually was what passed.
Thank you, Senator Scott. I very much appreciate your efforts on it. And I'm glad to have the backup there. Little admonition to everybody on the committee and going out is my only concern with the backup plans is people trying to kill our original plan because they like the backup better. And I will caution everybody that this committee's, we really need to come out and support a plan and that be our plan. So I'm happy to have it there, but we need to keep that in mind. Any questions for Senator Scott? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the effort. I think with that, we're kind of through that and we're ready to.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
I'm sorry, but I realize all the people I represent. Can we look, I can't, somehow I can't find the precincts, but can we look at the corner of Sheridan Johnson and Campbell County? Just there, there's an elbow that comes up off the Cheetah Road and Middle Prong. No, I know everybody that lives along there. So, Mr. Chairman, yeah, if you look at the boundary, the boundary between Sheridan Johnson County, then go over to Campbell County. Right there, see that blue vast area that has, could probably walk through the families in that area. You know, they have a tremendous amount of interest with the people around Spotted Horse, Recluse, Arvada, Claremont. I don't know how big is that census block.
This is showing the map. I guess I'm not sure which block you're looking for.
Well, Chairman's gone. So Michael, just that tip that, you know, brings that area all the way down to right. Yeah, and there's probably, on that side of the road, there's probably only about 5 ranches. I'm just curious, those folks might be happier if they are represented by somebody that is along that northern tier, if it's not significant changing any numbers. I know for a fact they would be.
So, Mr. Chairman, are you discussing this section right here in Campbell County? I apologize. So this is Sheridan County's corner.
Yeah,
And
Mr.
here's
Chairman,
Campbell.
Michael, yeah, that's correct.
Okay. This block. Oops. So there's several blocks. I'm not sure there's much population in any of these.
Yeah, and I guess, Mr. Chairman, my you know, and a lot of those people have like Trump bumper stickers and Second Amendment type of stickers on their trucks. I mean, I don't want to make them mad at me. So I'm related to some of them. Known some of them since I was. No, I actually do not believe it's gerrymandering. I mean, it's allowing them to be in a community that they're and to vote in a community that they are a part of. Yeah, 14 people. Might be a few more than that.
Mr. Chairman, so what I have highlighted so far has 39 population. I will note that this is, I believe, currently the consistent boundary for House District 3, which is part of Campbell County.
So at the appropriate time, I think we're gonna pull each kind of county up. And then when we're talking about those counties, amendments would be in order.
I can't hear you, Mr. Chairman. So I don't want to burn a bunch of the committee's time. However, it should be like uncomfortable times for me if I don't stand up, and speak up for those folks.
So I do know there are a couple submissions from Campbell County and from representatives of there. So we will take up Campbell County.
Okay, I
then
just want
we-
to point that out to everyone, is all those folks that live in that area, they're all good folks, all good ranchers. Okay,
We like
and
good
they
folks.
all socialize. I mean, I go over to the chili cook-off in Recluse every year. So this, okay, all right.
At the appropriate time, we will entertain an amendment
To move the good people.
to move the good people. And so kind of where we are now, Representative Greer, can we go to the Basin? So we had the basic revisions from the county clerks that were small changes that I don't think we'll approve when we approve the map. The Basin changes, to put it in deviation, were somewhat more significant, and I didn't know if you wanted to talk about any of those. Mr. Swank, do we need a motion on officially approving the new Basin drawing because it did, change 1,000 people around here and there in your
So-
mind?
Mr.
So-
Chairman,
I can speak to it from a 30,000-foot view, because they weren't that significant. What,
For that-
again, Lori Smallwood's the clerk up in Bighorn County, who probably has the most difficult job in the state with all of the ballots she has to put out. What we did is it looks like a lot of area was moved, but you had House District 27 going up to the highway to Shell.
And can you pull
pick
that map up?
A
Mr.
small
Swank?
amount of people. Well, that whole Shell country is Flitner country and belongs in the other House district. And moving that line back down really did not do anything other than catch people along that 14, Highway 14 that are just off the road. And then what it also allowed was House District 27 is to take a greater portion and provide a better representation for Basin. And then the next move was up Powell area, which has been an island for a House district. And the folks of Willwood, which are south of Powell, have always wanted to have as much of them included in that Powell district as possible. Senator Code, be proud of this plan. I'll just say that. So, yeah.
Any questions, committee, on any of the Basin, those 6 districts, all in deviation now? Not seeing any. Mr. Swank, do you think we need an official motion at this time on approving those changes, or? Guess it can't hurt, right? Or Mr. Anderson?
Up to you, Mr. Chairman. You could handle them all at the end, or I think do any of the later amendments potentially change this?
Mr. Chairman, none of the later amendments will impact the clerk changes for either the 62 or the 60.
All right, so we don't need to do any amendments or motions at this time. Where do you want to go next, committee? Natrona County, Campbell County? You want to start with Goshen County? Okay, Representative Duncan, let's talk Goshen County. So Mr. Swank, if you'd pull up the current Goshen County map of how we left it last time.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go
And
ahead.
Mr. Swank had to plug in a couple fixes. So the current map has Goshen split in 3, Weston whole, and Crook in sharing with Campbell. So my first amendment, based on how this goes, only amendment, will be that as soon as he pulls it up. This amendment, what it does is it takes the split out of Goshen, being split 3 ways. And it takes the plat portion and shares with northern Laramie. It takes the Laramie portion out and drops Goshen south. And then the northern part of Goshen goes north into what I'm calling the status quo of sharing with Niobrara and part of Weston. And then it takes that part that shares with Crook out of Campbell and it goes back into Weston, which is kind of, the line is a little off. Both lines in Goshen and in Weston are off because of the 62-31 district sizes, but it's, in essence, it's a status quo for that whole section. And then didn't mess with Campbell County. We tried to use as best as we could what their earlier submission was. However, I believe, Mr. Swank, that Sheridan in the 62-31 had to come over. So, correct? So that's the change in Campbell, but that's only what, 200 something people?
Mr. Chairman, for Campbell County, there's 377 from Sheridan in School District 3.
And that's I move that amendment.
I've got questions and back to moving amendments. I'd like to present them all. That was why I laid it out. We'll move them at the end, but I'd like to take testimony because they all impact each other. So I would like everybody to be able to present so we can have it across, because if we put one in, then what we're up to is you're going to invalidate part of this one to do another one. So that's all. Take chairman's discretion. We'll take the testimony all the way through, and then we'll start pulling them out to vote on them so that everybody has a fair chance to explain their part of the plan. My question, Mr. Swank, how many people are in the two splits in Weston County now? Because it goes further south now, I can see. So how many are left in Weston when they're done in the pieces?
Mr. Chairman, 1 second. I do have that on the table that I provided with your documents.
I think we're at the,
Mr. Chairman, I believe the map that you have is incorrect. The correct one is the one on the screen,
that
correct,
was what
Mr. Swank?
I was asking because it's different.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'm not quite familiar with what you're saying.
The question was if the map on the screen is what they have in their packet. I believe the map on the screen is the correct one and the one in the packet's incorrect.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was not familiar that there was a difference, but I will double check that.
Okay, because I knew under the districts, back to just a little back and forth, that, you know, Weston's original split was about 2,000 people with Crook, 20 something. And Representative Clausen, can you turn on your mic so everybody can follow it?
Mr. Chairman, so I think the map that matches the one on the screen is Region 7, Submission 9, Comp Plan 6, Amendment Alternative 1, Representative Duncan. So everybody's on the same page. I think there was a little confusion there. There's a different.
There is sorry, Mr. Chairman. There is a map from Representative Bear that goes over a similar area, but it's not the same map as we're looking at currently.
Okay, thank you. And then a question for Representative Duncan. So we'd ask that you go out and deal with everybody. I see we've got revisions from Campbell's clerk and from different places. Who all did you bring in your meetings to come up with this alternative?
Mr. Chairman, I forwarded my amendments to the entire committee as well as the chairman and requested that I gave it within days of our meeting for them to be able to go back to their districts and their regions to look at it and make any changes or whatever they needed to do.
So-
I had crickets.
Okay, but you didn't reach out to the clerks themselves.
No, my clerk reached out and then, and she worked on some of this. And then I sent it out to all the representatives on the committee. And as well as Representative Bear reached out to me in Campbell and I sent it to him. And so I sent it out right after our last meeting for everybody to look at and to send to their own clerks and to look and make changes if they needed to. And no one reached back.
Okay, I guess they did. We've got a Campbell revisions as well, so that they reach back in a different way up here. So, okay, with that, we're through that. And the next one then, go ahead, Ms. Co-Chairman.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Representative Duncan did send out two different ideas. I know Laramie County did discuss one of them that would be a share with Platte County of roughly 400 people into the north part as her second option, which is not her preferred option, but if push came to shove, that would be better than the existing. And so I did just want to tell the committee that the Laramie County legislators did look at that and discussed it. And if that's the will of the committee, we potentially could make a 400 person share with Platte County work to only divide Goshen two ways. And I think that's her second backup option, but she did present two to all of us. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that if that was on the table or when the time comes, there is potential that we could be agreeable to trying to keep Goshen only be split in two.
Mr. Chairman.
There, Duncan.
So, Mr. Chairman, I also want to give a little context here. I think we've gotten the messaging and we've gotten way off track here. I did a little research in history when I did this amendment. It came to my attention that Goshen County has never been split in only two or one way, just in two, this way, just in two parts. We've never had that in history. We've also never had our entire municipalities, all of them, in one district. In both this map and this is the only type of a map, and in the 60-30 map, do we have all of our municipalities within one district except JM. I visited multiple times with JM, and they prefer to be up with Niobrara. That's where they shop. That's where they grocery. They're closest to Lusk. They're okay with being up there. This map keeps all of our municipalities together. Excuse me. This map prevents splits. It prevents all the extra precinct issues. It corrects a lot of issues. One of the number one goals that we had stated from the very beginning of the committee was when we went in, we wanted to clean up that long, narrow strip that was so disenfranchised at the very beginning for the last 10 years along the eastern side of the county. Both this and other maps will take care of that. One of the other things is it has nothing to do with Laramie County. It has everything to do with the fact that this particular map allows us to have all of our municipalities together and as one voice, whereas none of the other maps and none of the other history ever has had that. So I just want to make that clear.
Thank you. Further questions for Representative Duncan?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, what's on the screen, I believe is House districts. And I'm a little confused as to what this proposal does to that new Senate District 31 that's proposed in the 3162 plan. I think it's being affected by this, is it not? But I'm unclear about that.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This would still require, at least the way I understood it, we'd have basically that share with Laramie and Platte County, since that's all the way it is with the House district to a limited extent. So, but it would be up to the committee, but my assumption was it would be a rural Laramie County and Platte County Senate district.
Follow up, Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I think that covered it.
Thank you. Further questions on submission? Okay, that does it. I think the next one is the 3 and 7 Converse Natrona, which will probably enter into that. Is that the next one in the package?
Mr. Chairman, I didn't know. It's at your discretion, but does Representative Duncan want to go over her second option as well?
Okay. Got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to go over this next
Okay.
option, but I will. This was my, if this amendment that we currently have and it failed and we go back to the original map that we have as of today, it is not a workable solution to be split in three. And for Platt, like I said last time, to have 8% in Goshen and Laramie to have 25% in Goshen. And physically, we talk about the Basin a lot, but physically, for you to understand this part in Platt, in order to get there and access for a representative to represent these people, they would have to go the back way through Chugwater. And that is half the time in the winter. It's, you never know if you can make that road or not because of the weather. So that would be the only access to those people. Otherwise, in the winter, you would have to go clear up to 26, across and down 85, or clear down to Laramie and across and up Laramie County, around and up. So you would have to go around to get to these people. So it's disenfranchising that 731 people. So my proposal is, worst case scenario, if we had to do this split this way. And the reason I'm against this, not because of Laramie County, but because if you look at the line and the way we have to do this, because of the 61 to 31 size of districts, you will see Laramie County has to come clear up to 15th Street, which is in right there, 1 block from Main Street to next to our grocery store. And so that encompasses a large chunk of our area and our community, all the way south. And so the populace, we have 12,400 and I think 98 people. That's all mostly across the corridor. There's 825 north of 26, and there's about 15 to 2,000 south of 26. So most of our, population, 10,000 is right along 26. So this split is not ideal for us because it comes all the way up into almost Main Street. So if we had to, because the will of the committee and I got outvoted, this is what working with our clerks for splits, for special districts and things like this, as far as a map is concerned, these lines is what would be doable for the clerk, whether we like it or not. Now, another thing about this map is it was my request to Laramie County to make sure that if we had to go eastern Laramie, that we stayed 10 miles at least, if not more, outside of the proper of Cheyenne. And so what happened was, by working with Laramie County, we were able from day one, knowing that this day might happen, that boundary line in Laramie happened, it's wonky, and it has to do with zip code lines. And it has to do with trying to stay 10 miles outside of the city proper. And I was trying to do that to try and keep it as most rural and as most common as possible to lower Goshen. So as most of rural Goshen as possible to try and keep Burns, Albin, Pine Bluffs, Carpenter. Those are communities of interest. And so that was my request, that worst case scenario, can we please stay as far out into the rural areas as possible of Laramie County as we can, to try and be as close to community of interest as possible. So if my other maps fail, this is the better of choice than what's currently adopted.
Mr. Swank, can you show me the north end? I want to see what it's doing up my neck of the woods on it. How they. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the northern part of this map is basically what is in place right now. It wasn't changed at all.
I just wanted to make sure. I was pretty sure of that, but I wasn't seeing it. Further questions, committee? I'm going to go ahead piece at a time. Public comment. Do we have anybody out in the audience or online that wants to comment on these plans? We've got two. Commissioner Ertman, are you jumping up and down? Welcome.
Thank you very much. There's always these rules that I have to follow. So thank you again. I'm standing in opposition. I'm sure there's not a lot of shock faces on you. But as we've gone through this process, I have coined a term for certain ideals and wishes that have happened as we've gone down this journey. And I've called them the understoods. And so as an example, I have sat here and asked for Weston County to be whole. And about after the third or fourth time, the looks on everyone's faces were kind of a tilt of the head, a shake of the head. And not without saying it was, we know, we get it, it's understood. So that's one example. There's also the Campbell County wants to stay whole. That's understood. Albany County wants to keep Rock River. That's understood. So there's several of these. Goshen County wants to be divorced from Laramie County. Understood. So as we've gone to so as we've gone through this process to watch every plan switch and be alterated and stitched together, then ripped apart, these understoods have been placed and put in place and then taken out of place. And it's been an interesting journey. But on January 27th, when you all came up with a new plan and tried to get those compromises and those understoods fit in the best way you could, and you signed off on it with a majority, your job was done. We can wash our hands of this and then we move it on to the floor. But then we were warned that there would be an amendment. So we waited for that amendment. I saw it a week ago. I knew that it was a raw, just an amendment that would be changed later on. So as we went through, then I got to see it again. And I'm still trying to understand, because this isn't understood anymore. This is one for me trying just to understand that we have now switched a finger that goes up and reaches up to grab something from Goshen County, and we've changed it to a hook. And I don't know if we're pirates here or what. But what I'm asking is that this amendment be put back onto the floor, and that the committee's job and the legacy of the committee is what is set before you, what you have now. That is my request. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More commissioners. Welcome.
Morning, committee. I'm Pat Wade, Chairman of the Niobrara County Commissioners. This has been a great learning experience for me. Fun to sit and watch, and I do worry that when this hits the floor, it's going to get really rough. So Niobrara County finds itself in kind of a unique situation. We're neighborly people. We're used to getting along, and being the little guy in the room, we've always had to be that way. Otherwise you get bullied. We're in a position right now that Weston County wants to stay whole, and I understand that. And I really support them at that. I also know that puts Goshen County in our other neighbor to the south puts him in a much poorer situation. And I spent the first 23 years of my life in northern Goshen County, so I have a pretty good understanding of what they're like. So it is tough. But I'm serious, that's where I grew up. JM, Wyoming was my hometown. So I was the first one to sign up for the draft when it was reinstated in my hometown of JM, Wyoming. But the thing about this, I cannot be in favor of a plan that would put us at a 3-to-1 disadvantage to Weston County. And I guess I would ask of this committee, as you consider your votes, if you would ask yourself if the people that reside in your district we're getting tied in with another county at a 3-to-1 disadvantage. How would your people want you to vote? And I'll go on to point out that with Representative Duncan's amendment, that still puts Weston County at a huge advantage. It puts them basically 2 votes for Weston County, 1 for Niobrara County, and 1 for Goshen County. So it gives them a pretty good running start at having their own representative in their own county. So anyway, if you would please consider that, I would respectfully ask that you would just think of it in those terms. How would your people want you to vote if you were in that situation? So with that, I would stand for questions.
Question for Commissioner Wade. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more testimony in the audience? Do we have anybody online? Do not. Okay. We'll move on to the next plan, which I believe was Converse Niobrara. Is that correct, Mr. Swank?
Mr. Chairman, we can go over that plan.
Okay. Are you the one presenting it once again? It appears you're the only one, so
Mr. Chairman, I believe there's members of the committee that can discuss both portions of this.
perfect. Which ones? I haven't done my homework, so. Senator Boner.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll just go over the, the Converse County side of the equation briefly and defer to my colleague from Natrona County. But what you have before you committee is the Converse County side is our submission, how we think our county would best be split up. It's basically taking a precinct from that Douglas School District and putting it in with that shared district with Natrona County. 2 objectives in doing so. One is to get both those districts, House District 6 and House District 62, closer to the ideal, even it out a little bit, but also taking a page out of Senator Scott's book. We do have some concerns about water infrastructure in that part of the county with La Perelle Dam. So we thought it'd be best to have 2 representatives representing that area. That's immediately downstream of the dam that is at risk of structural failure. And so those are the 2 reasons. There's also addition, I should say, of 50 people to that precinct at 7-7 in the northern Laramie range just south of the interstate that will help clear up some precinct lines. So overall, we're talking about roughly 330 people. That's a proposal from Converse County. I fully recognize that I think there's a different perspective from the Natrona County. So I'll ask the committee to vote it up, vote it down, but that's our input, but not a deal breaker either way.
Thank you, Senator Boner. Question, how does this snap in, one, to the existing 3162 into both the Duncan plans? Should we proceed? Because we're going to have to make all these pieces come together, and I just need you to explain kind of how that falls.
They're completely independent. So the plans don't affect each other. The Duncan Amendment does not come into Converse County at all. So they're 100% independent.
Just wanted to make it really clear to me. And then the splits between Natrona Converse, both House and Senate, kind of percentages roughly. I'm not asking for exact numbers, but so the committee understands, because when we start splitting these counties, who's going to have, as Commissioner Wade put it, who's got the upper hand and who's got the lower hand and by what percentage on each?
Right. So no matter what we do here, committee, Natrona County is going to have between 55 and 57%, I'd say, of the House District 62. So this will 300 people. This will shift it about 3%, I'd say. So instead of having it 42%, Converse County be more like 45. Like I said, not a deal breaker either way. We're not. I mean, at the end of the day, I hope the best candidate wins, because I'd be nested with them. And frankly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're from Eastern Natrona County or from Converse County. The fact is, they're going to have to represent both constituencies. So that's just my experience representing 2 counties. It's not always the same where we have to be butting heads, and it's not a high school basketball game. So. So like I said, not a deal breaker, but that's roughly the breakdown. And within the Senate, my Senate district would be roughly 70% Converse, 30% Natrona. Like I said, I guess I haven't even done the math on it, but it'd be.
Very good. No, you're roughly where I thought. I just want to make sure that both the public and the committee understood, this is a new split, that everybody understands kind of where they're at. Senator Scott, would you like to opine on this a little bit? Muted. You're still muted, Senator Scott. I've called on you, but you're muted. If you have the floor when you get
Yeah,
on.
Mr. Chairman, I couldn't get to find the unmute button for a minute. Mr. Chairman, I would prefer on this one, I think Representative McGuire was a little more involved in this and probably can explain better. I can see what they're trying to do to help get the dam there fixed. I'm not sure it's going to make any difference. I think that's probably going to be supported either way. I don't have strong feelings on it. I'm a little concerned that I've lost that district split in the Midwest Edgerton area. But that is a potential problem.
Thank you. Question, Senator Scott. Representative McGuire, round out the trifecta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first, I'd like to thank everybody from the Natrona County clerks and the Converse County clerks, commissioners, and everybody. We had earlier this year, we had put the burden on them to draw lines for proposed 60 district, and then we hit them with this, and everybody went to work and was so accommodating. So thank you to everybody who helped with that. And thank you for everybody. We had several meetings that went very well. And as it is right now, if you look at the map, and Mr. Swank, if you just run the mouse up and down the original proposed line, which is the north and south line, and you can see that. So that was the original proposal that came, and that was what originally was discussed with the Natrona County contingent. And it does make sense to include Glen Rock with the eastern side of Natrona County. From my door, it's a 20-mile bicycle ride to Glen Rock. It's a pretty easy ride. I just wanted to throw that out because I don't think that's an anecdote that we've heard so far. So there you go. But there are a lot of people in Glen Rock that work in Casper, go to school in Casper, go to college in Casper. So it's a workable proposition. Once you get past the line that Mr. Swank was outlining, which very closely follows the Glen Rock School District number 1 line, at that point, the enthusiasm for adding additional people all the way over towards Douglas, the enthusiasm waned and the reception got cooler and cooler. So right now, the position of Natrona County is we would like to keep the original line. And when it comes to a vote, it would be basically follow that line or add its, you can call it 7-7 out of Converse County to the new proposed House district. With regard to how it will shake out for those people, I just have to point out that one of our senior senators, who was actually my senator and has been there for a long time, he has worked very hard to develop relationships with the town of Evansville and the people in that side of Natrona County. And I can tell you from my observations, he's always at the meetings, he's always advocating for them. He has just done a great job. And so for him personally, to lose those constituents is not something that he's excited about. He's been very supportive of the committee work and said, if that's what it has to be, that's what it has to be. So he's a team player, but I will just point out that he's not excited about losing a quarter of his constituents. And we've heard that from everybody. I mean, that's, you work for your constituents and develop relationships. And so at this point, the Natrona County position is we'd like to stick with the original line. And when it comes to a vote, it'll be basically that line or the Converse line, which add 7-7.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. I've visited with your senator a whole bunch as well, and I fully understand that he's a trooper, truly a gentleman about the way this has been done. His district did grow quite a little. He was going to change some regardless. You know, that's one thing we've all found out. Everybody gets, there's nobody's going to walk out of this saying that I won easily. So with that, you folks made it clear, so we'll take comments on if the committee has any further comments. And Representative Clausen.
Yes, so, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this plan, I feel for the good senator, but this plan moves about 50% of my current house district around, which it's perfectly fine. But there's just I won't say an oddity, but a strange thing in the addition of the 4-4. There was a very large landowner bought a section or a piece of land, and they actually removed the houses and the people moved away. So it makes more sense than the cleanup of the 50 people. I just want to give an explanation there.
Thank you. Further comments, committee? We'll move out. Anyone in the audience like to comment on this particular part of the plan? Anyone online? Okay. So now we're on to Region 6, Mission 7, which is Campbell Clerk. I don't know, do we have someone here to present on it as well? Oh, I did not talk to Clerk Saunders. So if you want to walk us through it, Michael, and I'll comment a little bit on it as well.
Mr. Chairman, this is the Campbell Clerk submission for the 62 House District Plan 6. This is basically was done to clean up the lines, as the current plan has Weston Hole. And they didn't approach doing anything outside of Campbell County other than changing the share with Crook, which you can see it goes further down south along the border between Crook and Weston. And then they cleaned up some lines in Gillette area so that these follow, I think, more follow some of their wards and municipal precinct lines. But that is their proposal, and there isn't really much more to say. I apologize.
Representative Greer, this affects your area a little bit. You commented a little. Can you give us your thoughts on this plan and how it plays?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's still, again, that line in that area along where the three counties come together is existing boundary. And so so I understand why it's there, but yeah, it does still affect that area. And so the change is when you go to the 62 plan, you now bring in Sheridan County School District number 3. And then so you're justifying that by saying that there is a community of interest around that. And you guys all know, I mean, that's where my wife's ranch is. Okay. Full disclosure. And that line runs right through the middle of the ranch, separates the main house from the bunkhouse and the ancillary house. Yeah. Yeah, right where the handprint is, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
So
those people, I mean, Kenny's, you're talking
how many
about 5.
people?
It can't be that many. I mean,
Sorry to interrupt,
through there.
Representative Greer, but I think we'd be open to amendment.
Yeah,
To draw
so-
that can't possibly be 15. people.
Yeah. So Mr. Chairman, I mean, you got Crutchman's, Crumps, Mally's, Kenny Claybaugh's right up there. And then when you go further south on a Cheetah Road, you start getting. And so when you go further south, you start, you get down to, you get down to Laramore's and then where Senator Hines was, they all flow south to Gillette for their community of interest. So that's all I'm saying. Just take those people and put them in with their community if we're going to do the 62 plan.
So I think that an amendment's probably in order on it. I'm same as you. I know all the people up there, and I get exactly what you're talking. So it's what we've done on this committee, by the way. I was listening to the laughter, and it's personal, folks, for every one of us. As we've gone through this is what we actually see is areas of expertise and where you live at. And we actually, I appreciate your comments because I'm the same. I neighbor with a bunch of those people and it does matter to them. This is for the next 10 years and it matters where it falls. So our hope is this committee comes, everybody's honest and sincere about let's do this for the people the best we can. So this is our last chance. This meeting's gonna be where it's at. So maybe on a break with Mr. Swank, you can talk about, because I think have you pulled up the precincts, Mr. Swank, to see kind of what's in them?
So Mr. Chairman, I'll just tell you, I'm raising that in this committee because I would not bring that amendment on the House floor out of respect for the process.
Thank you.
That's why I'm bringing it up now.
I very much appreciate it. And that's because we're going to get there. You know, this North plan's how it snaps in with the different amendments depends where we fall. I want them where they're acceptable to everybody as we do it. So Representative Dunn.
Just thank you, Mr. Chairman. Out of curiosity, I'm confused. This submission by the clerk. So is it just a submission to clean up the lines? Or because I remember that Campbell County, this entire process has been screaming they wanted to be whole, but yet we have Crook is in there, Sheridan's in there. So I'm confused.
So I'll come on. That was why I led you to the question of who you dealt with when you did your amendments, because I did meet with part of the reps in Campbell County multiple times, and they said you hadn't reached out. So for my end, it was trying to figure this out. Speaker Barlow and I visited, and they're similar to what Weston County is. Part of Weston County wants split, part of them don't. Part of Campbell County, from what I do, and this is laying my guts out in front of the world, part of them want to have all their reps, all 5 of them within the county, and give up the chance of that 3rd Senate seat. Some of them want the 3rd Senate seat and have 2 other reps. I don't know which way to go personally. I'm there. It's the same comments that Representative Greer just made. I am going to represent part of those any way it falls. And I represent all of them, by the way. I'm Northern Campbell County right now, so I've got to represent what they want. I'm close friends with a lot of the people, and they're passionate of their stance. So what I'm trying to flesh out today is how we come up with what's the best plan for Wyoming. It's not the best plan for Ogden. It's not the best plan for an individual county. It's what's going to work for us. And my hopes were on these submissions that we kind of reworked, and we did, and everybody's continued to just do what they see in their area and use the justifications that way. So this committee is going to have to make the hard decisions today of which ones we take and where we go forward. And then it's back to the floor. It's what Representative Greer said is, I hope we do the fixes today so we don't go to the floor to try to do fixes. Representative Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess, I don't know if this is a question for you or Mr. Swank. What makes this map any different than the first group of clerk submissions that were clean up from the original map that we've already adopted?
Mr. Chairman, the map that is currently up can technically be substituted in to the current plan without any impacting any area. However, because there's 4 other amendments that impact the same area, it was separated out so you can see it separately with all those other individual amendments. But this was originally intended just to be a substitution to clean up Campbell County lines.
Thank you. Yeah, because each of these, as we do them, we're going to have to pass one. Once you pass one, it means another one doesn't work because, you know, we'll decide order. We're going to take a break. And I'm going to visit with the committee to decide which order we bring these up in. But necessarily, if we pass some of these amendments, the other ones just don't work because they destroy where you're at. So with that, we're past the Campbell clerk. Is there any further comments? Any further comments anywhere? Thank you. That brings us to, we're on to several Representative Bear's plans, and I don't see him in the audience. Mr. Swank, did you work with Mr. Bear on these?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, one moment, please.
Is there any chance Mr. Bear is online? So I think what I'm going to do is we are at 9:45. We're going to take a break till 10 o'clock, and I'm going to call Representative Bear because I really would like him to be able to present his plan. These are very difficult to explain rationale without having them there. So we're going to take a break till 10 o'clock. It's 9:44. We'll take a break till 10. Okay, we're back in again. We left off at the Representative Bear's got a couple amendments, and I believe he's online. We'll admit him and let him walk us through. Representative Bear, you've got multiple. We're not doing votes on them right now, so you'll be allowed to present each one of your plans, explanation. We'll do questions. And then I would suggest you stay online because somewhere later in the day, we'll vote one at a time on these amendments and go through them. So with that, you have the floor, Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for not being available earlier. What I do believe would be most helpful is for me to just give you a little bit of background on these maps. And I think in the end, I will only present one of the maps that I submitted. First of all, I submitted these maps prior to understanding that my county clerk had submitted maps on the same day. And so after having done that, I discussed those maps with her, and I do think she's done a great job, and I think those maps are acceptable. I do have some small preferences for the map that I'm going to discuss, and I do believe it addresses some of the concerns that you were having about a Weston split, which mine is drawn slightly differently, I understand, from Representative Duncan's. So with that, I will just describe the other maps that were submitted. I submitted a second map that was Weston whole for the 62 rep design. And that's the one I will not be discussing. The plan was also for me to submit a map for the 60 rep plan to make an adjustment to your backup plan. And after discussing that with the clerk, I am in full support of her submission for that plan. And I do hope that the committee will consider amending the 60 plan that was approved last time because there are several issues in Campbell County that are corrected with the clerk's submission in that regard. I had a discussion with Senator Scott about that and had told him I would be submitting a map. I did not do that after seeing the county clerk's map. Now, the map that I am going to present, and hopefully you, Mr. Swank, can bring that up for you. And this is the 62 plan with Weston split. If you could put that on the screen, please. Unfortunately, I was logged off of, so I'll have to use your map. This map has a split in Weston County that is the current split in Weston County. And I was told that there are members in Weston County, interested parties that would like to see the split remain exactly as it is today. So voting blocks were used to ensure that this line matches the current line in House District 1 and House District 2 for that split in Weston County. And I was able to maintain that at the same time, keeping all districts within deviation. And I will say that this particular map, though it has a share with Sheridan County, which was approved in your previous map, previous meeting, all of the districts will fall within either a 60 representative plan or a 62 representative plan as far as deviation. So I was careful to make sure the numbers will work on this map for either a 60 rep or a 62 rep. The only change that would be necessary is to remove the share with Sheridan, which would not significantly change the numbers. So having said that, this is the key to this map is that it does two things. It has a little bit of a preference inside of Campbell County for future growth. I had discussed this with the clerk, but she'd already submitted her maps. Mine just have more leeway for growth in the two particular districts that grew the most over the last 10 years. So they allow for more growth there in the city without having to make as great of an adjustment potentially 10 years down the road. Other than that, this map is pretty close to what the county clerk submitted. And now moving on to the eastern side of the state, this map has a District 2, House District 2, which looks very similar to what it is today and or what I believe Representative Duncan has submitted. The only difference is that I use the exact same line between House District 1 and House District 2 in Weston County that is where we're at today. And that was in giving preference to the stakeholders in Weston County. This map does not share with Laramie, So it works with either the I-80 compromise or a plan where Laramie County is whole with 11 reps, which is what we saw in the previous meeting. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for questions.
Questions for Representative Bear. Representative Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I have a question for Mr. Swank. Does this in Goshen and in the purple House District 2, are we within deviation? Does this map fit all the deviation criteria?
Mr. Chairman, the House District 2 in this map is at 9747, so it's at the very high end of a 62 deviation. And House District 5 is at the same, it's at 9753.
Further comment? Representative
Follow up?
Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great work. This is the same exact line that that we have submitted from almost day one. And if this map is adopted, our county clerk would go in and just make sure that a little tiny bit of cleanup right around the edge, right around the Torrington edge, I think is what would have to happen. So I'm all for it.
Further comments, committee? Swank.
Mr. Chairman, there's only one thing I wanted to point out. This map doesn't address Platte County. And if this is designed for a 62 house plan, if the Natrona Converse is brought in, Platte would need to find population elsewhere.
This isn't a complete submission that snaps in.
Mr. Chairman, the only other option would be to match it somewhat with Representative Duncan's plan.
Further comments? Any comments in the audience? Go up, Campbell County. It's laying right here. Further questions, committee? Anyone in the audience? Anyone else online, or one last bite for you, Representative Bear, if you'd like?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I would just reiterate that these numbers for each of these districts would work in either a 60 or a 62 plan. And because of that, there's plenty of room if Platte County has an issue to take a little bit of a notch out of Goshen County. And I understand that Representative Duncan has submitted such a plan. So this would work with either of those. Really, the idea initially was to just clean up the lines inside of Campbell County. As I've stated, my clerk did a good job of that as well. Mine simply just leaves a little bit more room for growth over the next 10 years. Thank you very much for allowing me to present, and good luck with the rest of this meeting.
Thank you. Representative Duncan, do you want to?
Yeah,
make a
thank you,
statement?
Mr. Chairman. I think Representative Bear misspoke and meant a notch out of Laramie County, not out of Goshen County. Northern Laramie, like my map that we presented earlier.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Bear, hey, thank you for this. What would you propose to take, what would the population notch look like for Platte County, do you think, coming in either into Converse or Natrona or Laramie? What do you think that would do, or how many population would they need?
Representative Bear or Mr. Swank?
Thank you, Mr.
Bear.
Chairman, and and Senator, I would defer to Mr. Swank on that. I haven't done a lot of looking at the Platte County situation.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, depending on the committee's position on the Converse Natrona share in a 62 plan, Platte needs at a minimum about, I believe, about 240 people to make a district within deviation for 62 plan. But it can obviously take more than that. But that's the general gist of how much that county would need to form a full district.
Senator Boner.
And just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, that plan does exist within Representative Duncan's plan. That map is those lines have been drawn. I think Horse Creek's basically the line of demarcation there, and that's about 300 or so people. So if this is a plan we move forward, it'd be easy enough to add in the addition from one of Representative Duncan's submittals, and it'd be sort of a hybrid motion, but it's, I think, doable.
Thank you. Other comments, anyone? Okay, I think that puts us through Representative Bears. We're through all the plans now. Representative Duncan, we had a request for a little more explanation on your two amendments. If we can back up with the committee's
Mr. Chairman,
blessing. Mr. Swank.
just for staff's benefit, is there any need to address the Region 1 plan for Laramie County?
Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Laramie County plan is somewhat dependent on the decisions made regarding both of Representative Duncan's submissions at this time. So we could certainly present that idea, but I guess I'd like maybe a direction from the committee on which way they're going on Representative Duncan's ideas. And then it may take us 20
I
minutes.
think that's exactly there. I think once we've kind of voted where we're at, we're going to have to take a break, and go back and do some final, because we're walking out of here today, folks, with a plan that's going to go into bill form. So we'll vote on the amendments, and then we are going to have to take probably a 2-hour lunch break and look at doing some cleanup to get the thing final, so everybody's in it done. So with that, Representative Duncan, we'll go back, and I think what we're going to do is fairly informal, some question and answer. You still deal through the chair, but I'm going to be pretty loose about how we ask the questions so we can get through this timely. So with that, Representative McGuire, would you like to ask some questions and kind of lead off where we're at?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to confess I got lost during your discussion. So if you could maybe start with the existing proposal and then how your proposal would make those changes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Greer.
You know, just to defend Representative McGuire, I too got a little lost. Can we, which alternative is being advocated to be put forward? So we start with that, and then that would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Swank, could you pull up my amendment number 1? And it's the Goshen, Niobrara, Weston split. And I believe the lines that you're going to have on my amendment are not necessarily correct. The one on the, maybe they are. So they are the same. Okay. So the map that you have is the Region 7 Submission 9, Compilation Plan 6 Amendment Alternative 1, Rep. Duncan. That's the map we're looking at. So what this one does is it currently, as you see on the map on the screen, and you see the red line in Goshen that goes horizontal, and then you see a line that goes north and south. So the red line in the center that goes north and south is what currently in the current map is split with plat. And to the right, which is the east side, is currently split with Laramie. And everything north of that red line is Goshen. So that's what's the current 62-31 map as it stands today, before my amendment. My amendment takes the plat chunk and drops it down into northern Laramie County. It removes the Laramie County chunk completely. So then the yellow right there is all Goshen, and the green now is Niobrara, House District 2. So that is what's called, I'm calling status quo, which is what House District 2 right now is, where we share our northern Goshen shares with Niobrara and lower half of Weston. So it's northern Goshen, all of Niobrara, and half of Weston is what we currently have a makeup of House District 2. That's what that green portion is right there. We have removed the long, narrow strip that is current in Goshen County, that is Laramie County, and we've removed that completely. So there's no more Laramie County in Goshen. If you go to the very top, sorry, you go to the very top, that little red line and squiggle right there that the hand is on, that in the current map is Crook. So my amendment pulls that out and drops it into the top of Weston, which is kind of sort of status quo. Now, my map on this amendment, unlike Representative Bear that we just saw, my map shows Weston going, the line for Crook goes a little further south than Representative Bear. And that's the crux of my map.
And I'll remind the committee, I was not on this committee and I was appointed to it by the speaker against my will. So now you have to live with me. So I'm looking at the city of Torrington in particular, and it's been a concern we've had when we were trying to do things up in the basin. And I get concerned when you've got smaller, so 3A communities where you're not blocking it up. You're not picking up subdivisions. You're running down, I mean, to be disparaging, but just random streets, and somebody's in one district out of the other. And I thought it was better, or I believe it's better to try to block up these small communities into one area. And so I just get your thoughts on that with the city of Torrington in particular.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we have done, these lines, if you follow them up closely, so because of the 62-31 and the difference in the districts, it makes it a little problematic. That's why you have what's called a dumbbell instead of the nice diagonal. So if you look at the population census blocks on the ends, that's why we have to creep down into there, plus special districts. But these squiggly lines around Torrington, what that is that's actually the municipal boundaries. So if you follow the municipal boundaries, and then on the northern part of Torrington and the eastern part of Torrington, and then you follow right along Highway 26 all the way to Lingle, and it goes right around the municipal boundary all the way to Fort Laramie, and then it goes north. And if you really look at the numbers up there, there's very few people up in that section to pick up a few here and there. I do not know their names. I know a couple, but I don't know their names. You probably do.
Oh, so I guess, Mr. Chairman, didn't answer my question, is that follows the city boundaries of Torrington is why that's that way. Of course, all of our small communities have really funky city boundaries because of this committee's views on allowing annexation. So, yeah. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, just to clarify too, the current map that we are living under prior to redistricting has West C in Torrington and over is, and then it comes down inside some, I mean, it is chopped up by neighborhoods for House District 2. You go along the eastern border of Goshen County, it comes in a long narrow strip, and then it's like a boot, it comes up and it hooks around the prison. And so it has many, many, many splits. And then there are some instances there along that eastern strip that actually were problematic because it exposed the voters potentially for in terms of an election. There's only like 4 people in that precinct. So it becomes really problematic because of the amount of lack of population lower than that Highway 26 going down south. And so the clerk worked really hard to make sure there was hardly any splits and making sure all the special districts that we have up there and including all of those. So that's why it looks the way it does. The clerk is the one who actually drew these to make sure that they were as best to their elections and precincts and their judges as possible.
I believe we have the clerk in the waiting room. Can we let her in?
Hello, Mr. Chairman. This is Cindy Kenyon. I'm the county clerk in Goshen County, and we did create this in our office. And Representative Duncan did a very good job of explaining that these are municipal boundaries, which of course are very reasonable areas to draw a line. Lingle is simply the area around Lingle, and the Fort Laramie area, that is mostly current precinct lines. And the reason that those precinct lines are drawn there is because it is easy to travel those roads and to get into Fort Laramie. When you get into rural areas, places for polling places that are federally compliant and handicap accessible are few and far between. So the Fort Laramie precinct is quite big. And what we do is we try to join up those roads that are normally passable and get to the nearest polling place. So that's kind of why that is shaped that way. And if you have any questions about this map, I'd answer them now.
Questions, comments? Well done. Thank you. Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, so I guess I have a question for the Laramie County folks on what would if the plat district went into Laramie County, maybe just in broad strokes, what would that generally mean for Laramie County districts?
Mr. Co-Chairman.
If you give me about 1 minute, Mr. Chairman, I can let you know. And you can go to Senator Scott first and I'll look up that information.
Senator Scott. Go ahead and unmute.
Mr. Chairman, the question I have is probably for Mr. Swank. If we were to adopt this amendment from Representative Duncan, what are the implications for the on the 62 plan for the district that is partly within Converse County and partly within Natrona County? Does adopting this change that dynamic at all in terms of population?
We had that answered. The answer is no. It's standalone.
Okay.
My mic is on. Yeah, it's a standalone, Senator Scott. We asked that question when they presented, so.
Okay, I missed that. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No problem.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, just to answer that question. So Laramie County did look at these ideas and we, I think, do have a map that would incorporate Platte County going in with the current share with Goshen County. Because we're talking about roughly 2,000 people and we did not put together a map to figure out how to condense those 2,000 people that we were sharing with Goshen into Laramie County. That would allow us to draw about 2,600 more constituents in Laramie County than we'd be entitled to at deviation. And that would change up our map significantly, having to reincorporate 2,600 people into our current maps we've had drawn. So it wouldn't necessarily be superbly agreeable to us. It's a benefit to us, I would say, right? You're giving us more than we're entitled to, but it would cause some serious concerns with the 15 of us who we tried to figure out how to draw maps to accommodate most of our legislators in Laramie County. It would cause several hours of remap drawing if that's was to move forward.
Yeah, but
Can you
Mis-
keep that piece of video for me? Because I'm gonna need it later. When he says he,
Yeah, Mr.
send another copy.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, right. The reason why Laramie County wants to be with Goshen County is because Laramie County's population has grown. And so we have to pair with someone to make the population work. And so it is Laramie County's belief that Goshen County as a community of interest, regardless of Goshen County's feelings about that, right? It's not any other reason, but our population has grown. Laramie County itself too would like to be whole, right? Just like everyone else, minus carbon. Hates Rollins. I've learned that in redistricting. Rollins shall have nothing to do with its county. But the reason is our population is so large, right? And it only makes sense for us to go into other counties. Platte doesn't have enough. Right? We would have to take all of Platte essentially, and I'm sure Platte would not feel comfortable with that to have Laramie County representation for its entire county. And so we have to share. And so our proposals have always had Laramie County being divided in a variety of ways. And somehow we find that acceptable to work with our neighbors who have that commonality of interest, primarily when it comes to farming and ranching. By the way, we're having a large Laramie County Farm and Ranch show later this month. You're all welcome to come on down. You know, so it's just important to recognize that that's why this is happening. So as you heard the chairman of the House say, now we need to find a solution for 2,600 people. This is not a, oh, we have an extra 100 here, an extra 100 here, 2,600 people. Give us another senator. Right? Or
The
that,
answer is no.
the answer is no, right? I mean, even giving us a half a House rep caused epic meltdown across the state. So, you know, we have to be reasonable about what's happening. And I hear Goshen County's concerns, but we need to make a decision quickly because Laramie County cannot do a plan until we get this resolved and the committee needs to make a decision.
That will happen.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just from Platte County's perspective, as I understand it, I think that this is agreeable to Platte County because there is a community of interest between Chugwater and sometimes they call it kind of the Tri-County area. And so, you know, when you add 300 people northwestern Laramie County, it's not problematic at all. Just want to make sure that's absolutely clear. I know this is a concept that we have fleshed out too much. It was something that I think I mentioned briefly to some folks from Laramie County a while ago now, but for a reason we didn't pursue it. But now we're in a position where this is possible and I don't see it being problematic for Platte
Now I'm
County.
confused. So we're talking 2,000 people and 300 people.
So
Which is it? Why?
So I was talking about Platte County, Mr. Chairman, not Goshen County, right? I represent Platte County. And so adding this map right here, adding 300 people from northwestern Laramie County into Platte County to form a House district is not problematic from my perspective, from what I understand.
What happens to the other 1,700? Is that back to Goshen? That's my whole question is I get solve one county.
Right.
But we're talking about 2,000 people. And where is it going to come? If it comes all out of Platte, I'm guessing they're not thrilled about it, all 2,000. If it comes out of Goshen, they're not thrilled. And that's what this committee's got to decide is where are we going to make this fall in deviation? We can't just take one piece and say, well, they're happy with 200, but we still got 1,700 more somewhere to figure out. So how many's in Platte County?
Well, Mr. Chairman, just
Senator Boone.
to be clear, I mean, there's 8,605 people in Platte County. If you take 2,000 out of it, I mean, there's a ripple effect. So I was referring to the map that's before us that we have worked in, has been, you know, available to the committee. I was just making that point that it depends on how you do it. It's not an absolute hard and fast no, you know, for any of these counties, I don't think, to share with Laramie County. How you do it does matter. And so I always simply pointing out that this map that we're looking at right now, that's the context, right? This is, I think it's agreeable to Platte County. Just that's my only point. I wasn't making a broader point about the 2,000 people at Goshen County or not. That was my only point.
Mr. Chairman,
Another thought.
to add clarity to that in connection with our Platte County colleague. you know, it's my understanding and the other Laramie County representative that Laramie County does not object either to sharing that particular area of Laramie County with Platte County. And so that is satisfactory to the Laramie County delegation as well. And we have proposed different plans that reflect a similar relationship with Platte and Laramie County. That doesn't solve the remainder of the problem, as the Senate chairman has pointed out.
Representative Duncan, it's your amendment. Can you kind of explain some of the numbers and ratio? I'm trying to get this. Actually, I'm going to jump over. Representative McGuire's got his hand up and we'll pile on a little bit.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to interrupt where we were. I was just wondering, at some point, if Mr. Swank could put the existing map up so that we could see what the existing
That
map
would be
looks like
helpful.
again. And if you would zoom into Torrington so we could see what the existing map looks like in Torrington. So both the big picture and especially in Torrington.
Thank you. Good question.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I have a digital map of the existing plan. There were, I have some static maps that were presented at the very first meeting. Just one moment. Just to clarify, you're looking for what is currently in place, currently enacted districts. Is that correct?
That would have been what we voted last meeting. The 3162 has passed.
Okay.
I
Pardon me,
think
Mr.
you do
Chairman.
have it. It's on the website.
I thought you meant going back to what our,
No,
sorry.
just the 3162 as adopted at last meeting, because I think we're all mentally a bit of spaghetti right now. There we go.
Mr. Chairman, the current map that it's showing is the 62 plan adopted by the committee last meeting.
But questions on that plan? Anybody?
If
A
I,
comment? Representative Duncan, you've kind of got the floor to jump in.
Thank you. So if you zoom in on this map to Torrington, so that little square island right there, what that is right there is the golf course, and that's municipal city property. So there's a little line that goes in there. What this is, if you zoom really far in, that little orange piece that comes up, that goes right up into Main Street, Highway 26. And so that's even my map that corrects this map comes all the way up to the river, right up to Main Street. You know, we don't love it, but it's a map that fixes what you're currently seeing on the screen.
Representative Duncan, I guess my question, I'm looking at the map. And I get that it goes to Main Street, but I don't see any blocks or anything there. Is that the sugar factory or what? What is it? Doesn't look like there's any business there. It's just a. So when you look at where the orange comes up to, yeah, Highway 26. I guess I'm not catching the city part you're getting there. Okay, Clerk.
I'm
wants to
sorry,
talk.
look to the left of that orange. That's coming up right on our grocery store, right up, and see, it comes right on up. You've got, our clerk can explain it a little bit
Okay,
better.
Clerk's got her hand up, so
Yeah.
we'll put her on. I miss Cindy, Ms. Kenyon, welcome again. Yeah, she's held her finger up. She's working on it. There we go. Welcome.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, thank you. What are the questions about this map? I could answer those, and then I have a comment about what it does to the bottom of Goshen County's
Perfect.
precincts in the southern half.
Yep.
What's the question?
yeah, is this municipal boundary or I guess explain to us better what needs changed off of this map to make it work right and numbers that it affects.
It doesn't include all of our city population. Well, I don't believe this includes quite all of the city boundaries, and it's got some industrial park and some different things in there. But one thing to consider is there are some very populated areas, right? In the orangish color area, the tan area, however you describe the color, that are very much part of the city of Torrington, although maybe not incorporated areas. So I have some questions in my mind about what would happen with those precincts. This map seems to slice through a lot of our precincts. And I think, could you zoom out, please? Okay, to where we can see the southern edge of Goshen County. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. So that's it. The way this slices through Goshen County, north and south. Now, I know last time when everyone redistricted, which I was the clerk then, and it was very frustrating to see the line that went up and grabbed the prison. It disenfranchised a lot of voters. And what has happened here is that line has simply been expanded. And even though that line disenfranchised voters and appeared to just draw a line around someone's house, it sliced through the middle of all our southern precincts. And this cuts off our Chugwater precinct. It slices through our Hawk Springs precinct, since it slices part of Chugwater off, I don't know that the line for the LaGrange precinct is quite right, but our precincts run the other direction. So this slices right through all of them, and also two of them that are at the boundary, at the incorporated area boundary for Torrington. And what happens when you create those splits is suddenly your election judges have twice as many ballots. And then last time, shortly after redistricting, two minor parties qualified for ballots. And so that quadrupled the amount of ballots. And so when you start creating these splits, it's not just the splits you create now, it's the splits that can be created later in a primary with the quadrupled amount of ballots. So this is very problematic. You'll notice that all of the maps that my office draws tend to be a diagonal type map and include incorporated areas, because to have those all whole fits very nicely in the population for a house district. And this is the problem, is that this just takes what used to go around someone's house and just makes it wider and more problematic. It doesn't solve the problems created by drawing around that one house and grabbing the prison. This administratively is very, very hard on Goshen County. And we have, our population is 12,498.
This is like 700.
And that whole green area, I think, is like 700 people. We prefer to have a two-way split. We've been split 4 ways, 3 ways, and 3 ways since I've been here. And every time those splits happen, it just creates more problems. And I know that the legislature looked at the line that was drawn and going up and grabbing the prison, and they think somehow this is fixing that. But indeed, it's not fixing it for my office or election administration. It's simply getting rid of the line that went around someone's house and then grabbed the prison. So for my office, this doesn't fix anything. In fact, it makes it way worse. So it's just not fair to the voters of Goshen County, who in Representatives Duncan's map between Goshen County, Niobrara County, and then when you see the Weston split, we have the majority of voters in those three counties that like Representative Duncan's solution to a problem. And Laramie County has a map plugged into to Representative Duncan's amendment, which you can see right there. That seems to be within deviation, and I'm not sure why Laramie County cannot just solve that problem itself and tweak their map. We have all made hundreds of maps. I know they have too, but we have enormous commonality between the northern area of her map with Niobrara and Weston. And if we can even out that population to provide more fairness and to satisfy the voters of the majority of those three counties, and of course Platte, I don't see why that can't be passed by this committee, because it works for all of us. So I'd ask your support for this map, and don't pass one that draws that line and slices through all our southern precincts. We don't have anywhere to move them. So we would appreciate your support for Representative Duncan's map. And I think there's even wiggle room in there to change the line to the existing line in Weston, as opposed to just following highway, I think it's 450. I think there's even room to do that and to plug in Bear's map from the northern area of the state. I think all those numbers work, and that Laramie County can create lines, or already has lines, to meet the needs of this map. So I'd ask your support for it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could we have the clerk quickly, Mr. Swank, pull up the Goshen non-preferred map? The second amendment, the one that just splits Goshen with Laramie. But what it does is it's the clerk's drawn map. So if we are forced to have to take this map that's currently adopted, the second amendment, Representative McGuire, the second amendment is the status quo of the map that we have now adopted. And all I did was change Goshen and Platte's lines. And what that does is, instead of those three pieces in Goshen, we just move that portion into Platte again. And then we just move the small portion of Laramie all the way across and kept it with Laramie. So this is the status quo of the map currently. But what we did is we removed the three-way split and changed it into a two-way split. Now, I hate this map, but at least the clerk had a choice in being able to make it workable for our county. So if you would blow up Torrington a little bit to show the difference, not literally, but figuratively, please. And to show how that orange piece is gone. So you see that bright red line, that was the previous map we were just looking at. So our clerk went in and changed it. It still comes all the way up to the river, and it goes up. Now that island, once again, that is municipal property. That is the golf course.
How many people live
In the golf course?
there?
That's city owned.
I get it, but how many people live
In the golf course. None, but right around it, there's quite a few.
there? Right, but they're all in a different district. I guess that's my question, is I question whether you can have.
I don't
towns
know.
out there
All
that-
I know is
I
that
understand what the city owns. but
all I
also
know is this
understand
was
in
drawn
rural
by the,
areas we're the same. We have these huge areas that have precinct blocks with zero in them. And they don't matter where they go because there's no one to represent there. And my belief is on this, and if it goes, I'll amend it back into the surrounding areas. There's no one there to represent. We represent people, not physical areas. It's an island.
There's a road there.
We went through
And
this
it's
road deal in
purple.
Fremont County. We lost.
So anyway, this, if you see this and then you blow it out a little bit, this is the map that I gave to our clerk after our last meeting, and they went through and they redrew the lines. So the upper purple part is Goshen and the lower part is Laramie County. So if we're forced to go with the map that is the status quo that has already been adopted, this is the amendment I will push. So I prefer the first amendment. And depending, this is number 2, and it doesn't affect anybody. It only affects Goshen, Laramie, and Platte, because that's who split up Goshen into 3. All we did is we just changed it to split to 2 and moved Platte into Laramie. So it's the same for Platte in my amendment number 1 as my amendment number 2. So Platte doesn't change in both amendments. The difference here is Laramie stays with Goshen, or the other one, Laramie does not stay with Goshen. And that's the preferable map.
So, Mr. Chairman, I
Well
have
done. Representative Greer.
Yeah, so in reviewing these, this was a compromise I looked at as being reasonable. So I have a question for the Goshen County clerks and then a question for our Laramie County legislators. For the clerks, looks like this solves those split precinct issues. I just want to verify that. And then for the Laramie County delegation, you know, as I drive down I-25 way too many times in my lifetime, it appears that bringing Platte County, I have a difficult time when I cross from Platte County to Laramie County, knowing the difference. The wind might let up just a skosh, but I can't tell. So those 2 questions. Okay, we'll start. Yeah, Mr. Co-Chairman, we'll let you go, and Cindy, be ready. We'll have you, Ms. Kenyon, after we've listened to the Laramie County folks.
And my clerk is here as well, Mr. Chairman, if we want to hear from her. But I do believe the Laramie County majority delegation met, and we understood that dividing Goshen into 3 was not significantly fair to Goshen County. And so I think we committed that if Goshen County wanted to be split into 2, that we could easily enough make it work to have Platte County go into northern Laramie County and take roughly 300 to 500, right? Platte County's making out in this deal. They'll probably have don't tell anyone, it's the clerk's telling them in the back. And so I do believe Laramie County is amenable to allowing Platte County into Laramie County as well. On this idea, we discussed it, and that we drew the line at probably Horse Creek. There is a community of interest up north, about 15 miles north of Cheyenne, and people in the Chugwater area come down, people in northern Laramie County go up. So we're agreeable enough to that concept, knowing that Goshen County is getting a raw deal, trying to be divided into 3.
This must be
Senator Nethercott, we'll erase that last comment.
The co-chairman is correct. And so do want to make sure to recognize that it is Laramie County's position to share with Platte and to share with Goshen. So Laramie County is agreeing to be split 3 ways, right? In a way that would benefit Platte County. And regardless of how Goshen County feels about it, arguably is a benefit to Goshen County because it only splits Goshen County once with Laramie and how it's currently divided. And so we do feel that that was a compromise for everyone, recognizing Laramie County split 3 ways. So a little bit of recognition for that compromise from our rural colleagues with our rural Laramie County, and that there is a community of interest there, and we're willing to seek that resolution, acknowledging that compromise has to be met. So Co-Chairman Swanson did a great job explaining that conceptual approach we took.
Sarah Case.
I promise. This is a live broadcast from Fremont County Clerk. And she says, we didn't get to have an island. Just saying. I know. I just wanted to pass that on.
Thank you. Representative Yin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to double check and have clarity for everyone on the current 62 plan as adopted on what the actual precinct boundaries are. I did send screenshots of precinct lines overlaid with the 62 map. But if you zoom into Torrington, I believe it is every Torrington municipal precinct. So it is, and maybe if Michael Swank can correct me with that, the current 62 plan, not the amendment. So. And then, so I counted the number of splits and it does split. It does split the Yoder outside precinct, the Hawk Springs precinct, and Torrington West and the Lingle outside precinct. So while it does keep all the municipalities, I think it has a similar number of splits than both of the amendments. I'll be honest. They're just different places that get split.
Ms. Kenyon? Oh, go ahead. Ms. Kenyon, would you like to weigh in again?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Yin is incorrect. This does create many more splits, especially around Torrington and not going along the highway. It creates many more splits and is worse. Of course, we support the amendment that shares to the north. We have successful history with that, and I'd still ask your consideration for the map that shares to the north instead of sharing with Laramie County, simply because it does not create as many issues for election administration. It keeps all of our municipalities in the same area, as Representative Duncan has said, and I'd appreciate your support for it.
Thank you. Questions? Representative Clausen.
Mr. Chairman, this could be for either the clerk or Representative Duncan, but that little hook that goes in that you guys want to get rid of is, I think I know where that's at in Torrington, but I'm not sure. Is that the new industrial park? Your new, so that's, okay. So clear, this is that city of Torrington put that in Goshen. So there's a new industrial park right there. So that's the reasoning to keep that with the other precinct. It's city property.
Is there another comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm kind of piling it on here, but a new industrial park, isn't it true that Goshen County is one of the only counties to have passed a 7th Amendment or a 7-penny tax for economic development?
Mr. Chairman. That used to be true, but it's no longer true. Now, Lander and Fremont County, I believe they have one. And I think another county is in the process of having one. So we were the first. However, we're not the only.
Follow up. Further comments, committee? Online, who do we have? I can't see good enough. Okay, but yes, please.
Did he call on me?
I think so.
Mr. Chairman, did you call on me?
They thought you had your hand up.
I did.
Please.
Also, I would add in response to Senator Nethercott's statement that our tax, and to Representative Duncan's explanation, our tax is only a 1/4 cent economic development tax. And indeed, we are not the only ones to have economic development tax now, but it is a 1/4 cent, not a whole penny.
Thank you. So I think we're through all now. Do you have further to add or questions for Representative Duncan? Anyone? All right, so I think we're through everything in the package plan wise, correct?
So, Mr. Chairman, Laramie County still remains out there, but I
Well, Laramie's gonna either
De-
get included or
depending-
not
yeah.
included, depending on how we vote.
And then
today.
so maybe after lunch, depending if we could take either a vote or a pulse of the committee on Representative Duncan's suggestions, Laramie County would be ready after lunch to have a plan in alignment with wherever this committee is.
Okay, my suggestion would be to take up immediately the clerk revisions, which was the first thing we did. I think it's pretty non-controversial. Go ahead and codify them into the plan. If that's acceptable to committee, I'll take a motion on the clerk's adjustments that we started with. Somebody will move it. We can just adopt it into plan. Moved by Clausen, seconded by Scott. Okay. Any comments before we go to a vote, committee? Question called. All in favor, say aye. I think we can do this for the voice vote. Opposed, no. They've been adopted. Probably the next, we can either go to the Duncan plans or to the Natrona Converse split. Okay, we'll go to the Natrona Converse. We have reps from there. Would one of you like to move it, or would you like someone else to go to work on your counties? Okay, moved by Duncan.
Would we move which one?
Okay, this would be the Natrona Converse. It would be the second one in your package. This would be the split that Representative McGuire and Senator Boner explained to us on the split, and Senator Scott. If we have comments on that before we go to a vote, Senator Boner.
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be prudent just to do two motions. First one being Natrona County, which everybody agrees is, I think everybody on the committee agrees is, has support. Then there's a split between Natrona and Converse County on the Converse County line. So with
We'll
that,
split the motion.
right,
that
so
way.
I'll just make a motion to accept the Natrona County submission.
Okay, we had a motion on the floor. We'll get those withdrawn, the motion in a second, and then we'll go to.
Okay.
Okay, they're done. So now we have a motion on just the Natrona
Just
County.
in Natrona County, I believe that this has support from.
Been
all
moved
the
by Boner
legislators.
and seconded by Clausen. Any debate or comments? Question called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry. Representative Yen, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, because with this is being split between two motions, would it still be in deviation if we did one, if the committee accepted one but didn't accept the other?
Representative Clausen.
So Mr. Chairman, it would be in deviation. The House District 6 side would be 104.7, and I haven't refigured the Natrona County side, but I think it's right around dead on, maybe slightly under. If we take the Natrona County side without the Converse side, and then we could add in the second motion, if you pick up the Converse County lines, evens the two precincts out, if that answers your question. So they're both in deviation. Either way we go.
Either way.
Is that clear as mud? Is that your question?
Representative Yen, follow up.
So, okay, just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, are we voting on the Converse County lines or the Natrona County?
Natrona County.
Okay.
This Natrona and question called. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's passed. Now, Senator Boner.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the lines within Commerce County as submitted. It's a slight deviation from the current committee plan that goes along the school district lines. It adds one precinct plus 50 people into the shared house district with Converse and Natrona County. No matter how the committee votes, the districts within Converse and Natrona County will be within deviation. I gave my explanation for why we submitted these changes, and I don't have anything to add. So.
Moved and seconded. Comments? I'm going to give everybody, so I don't jump. Any comments, anyone? Okay, question being
Well,
called.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I would like just a little more discussion.
Okay, absolutely. That
And,
was what I was hoping.
and so, I mean, my understanding is is it more because we want the school district, or is this to gain Converse County an extra, is it 300 people to be more equal to Natrona County? I guess I just want, what's the official reason for this change?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Boner.
As I stated earlier, two main objectives. One is to even out the both districts to get them closer to the ideal average. And the other one is to ensure that there's two representatives representing the La Perrella area We have significant water issue, infrastructure issues in that part of the county. And there is a good community of interest that, it brings in folks that are more on the mountain, I guess. And that seem to be consistent with the rest of House District 62. So it's, like I said, not a deal breaker either way. That was the 2 or 3 reasons that we, and our clerk, based off our clerk's input, that's the map that was submitted.
Further questions? Question called. All in favor? Say aye. Opposed, no. Do a division. All in favor, raise your hand. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So you get 4. Opposed? 2 online. Blackburn, no. Ian, no. Roscoe, no. Nethercott, no. Swanser, no. Case, no. McGuire, no. Greer, no. Motion's failed. We're back to
One dam, one vote.
one dam, one vote. So, all right, now we're down to, we've got the bear plans, and I don't lack of a motion on them. If there is a motion, we'll move on to the Duncan plans. So we have, actually, we're at the point of the day, we're at 3 plans at this point. Plan 1 is what's been adopted. We have Duncan number 1 and Duncan number 2. I am going to allow Representative Duncan to make the motion to which one that you would like to present first. And we'll
I move amendment number 1, Goshen Hole, Weston Split.
discussions. Everybody understand where we're at? Well explained. Goshen Hole, Weston Split, no Laramie County. Correct? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, question called. All in favor? Say aye. Opposed, no. No. Division, I'll go ahead and do it. All in favor, raise your hand. Owner, yes. Duncan, yes. Clausen, yes. Scott, yes. Okay. Those opposed, raise your hand. Greer, no. McGuire, no. Case, no. Swanser, no. Driscoll, no. Nethercott, no. Roscoe, no. Yen, no. Blackburn, no. And Air, no. So that has failed. On to number 2, if you'd like.
Reluctantly, I'd like to move amendment number 2. Goshen Laramie split plat share with Laramie.
What's it do to Weston? Hole.
Yes, Weston Hole.
Okay, just being clear so everybody understands.
I forgot. There's so many.
Yeah, we're the same. So discussion, committee discussion.
It's not our preferred option. Hey, so Mr. Chairman, I just, on behalf of my county, I would say that it does not create the most agreeable right to Laramie County to be split into what'll now be 13 different districts, but we're willing, I guess, 12 districts and have a 3-way split in Laramie County, but we don't believe it's fair that Goshen gets split 3 ways. And so we are agreeable to have 300 or 400 Platte County residents share a district, 300 or 400 Laramie County residents share a district with Platte County to help Goshen out.
Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 things. Just a reminder, there is an island that we'll want to deal with.
You speak a little louder.
Just a reminder that there's an island that we'll want to deal with.
We'll deal with it by amendment.
But my other question is if we could just go through and review, because there is a drawing of what it does to Gillette, but I'm not sure what the result is compared to the current.
I was
So-
about to address it, but we have not, Gillette clerks have a plan, which if this goes, the Gillette clerks plan will come next. Because is they've submitted one that will tie into this one that significantly changes parts of it. It does not affect the overall plan, but it will affect parts of it. It'll be the same as what we did in Natrona and Converse. So we'll deal with this, but we are open to an amendment on this to get rid of the island. If you would like to make that. You did make that? It's friendly, yeah.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes or no? Yes or no? Yeah.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I have two questions.
Representative
One
Bear.
is I don't recall that I ever heard how many people were in that island.
Zero.
Is it truly zero?
Yeah.
Okay. So I needed to know that. And then second of all, what Campbell County plan then would tie into this? So I can look at that.
Campbell
before I
County
vote?
clerks, I will find out for you. It was this.
Is it labeled one of the bear?
It is, no, it's labeled Campbell Clerk. It is Region 6, Submission 7, 62 HD Plan Revisions, Campbell Clerk. It's about middle of your package. If you look at it, if you see, it'll have the red Cook County whole, and it shows
Which submission, Mr. Chairman?
Submission 7.
which. Submission 7, Representative Greer.
Okay, thank you.
It's
Mr.
up on
Chairman,
the
I put it
screen
on the
now. So
screen.
If you look at the screen,
And we'll
Major-
vote, Mr. Chairman, we'll vote on that next.
yes, sir, we will.
Okay, thank you.
So,
We
Mr.
have an amendment on the floor. I didn't catch who the second was on it to eliminate the island.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
uh,
more discussion. Representative Yen.
yeah, I would just like Michael Swank to be able to zoom in on that because it actually is a contiguous block, the way the census block is drawn. It just doesn't look like that because the line is thicker than the size of the width of the block. But I don't think it's truly an island.
It's exactly what we did in Fremont.
It does. There's a actual census block that connects them.
Mr. Chairman, it's very silly looking, but it truly isn't an island the same way the Fremont County one is an island.
So I'll ask a question. I understand that there's a census block and line with no people in it. Back to perceptions in general, it's what happened with the prison, except the prison had people, but this is a road to nowhere with no constituents. And
Senator Scott wants to say.
Senator Scott,
Mr. Chairman, very simple question. Does either the plan as it's before us now or with the amendment split any census block? Because if you've technically split a census block, then you really don't know what you're doing.
no census block split. I'm hearing from the committee. Representative Claus.
Just a question, and maybe this is for Representative Duncan, but does that thin little strip, is that just a road or is that annexed or is it, is that city property as well? Or is that truly an island of?
So further explanation, Representative Duncan, either way, because
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm being told it's annexed, just the road, and it's all city limits.
further discussion, Senator Case.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the situation in Fremont County was also in city limits, you know, it's kind of via the same reaching and follow road. I mean, is this contiguous, you guys? Come on.
I don't think there's any.
It doesn't matter, so why don't we get rid of it? Make it
Representative
brown.
Claus.
Just to be perfectly clear, we are certain no one lives here.
Yeah.
From the census.
Right now.
Will anyone live there in the next 10 years? Nobody can live there.
So if someone did live there, we create the same problem. You've got a voter that's identifiable, so you're still in the
Question.
same quandary.
Question.
Senator Nethercott. Question.
being called on the motion.
To eliminate.
Debate's
the
still
island.
open if people are I'll continue discussion till it's extinguished.
The motion, just the island right now?
The motion is just the island.
No, it was friendly.
It was a friendly amendment.
So we're dealing with.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Representative Duncan's amendment number 2, dealing with that motion, right, with the friendly
Amendment.
amendment to eliminate the island where no people live.
So further
Right now,
discussion.
if they move in.
Question called. So the amendment is to remove the tongue and the piece. If you vote yes, we're removing it. If you vote no, it's going to stay. All in,
But the whole amendment, the whole motion is to go into Laramie County, right, for Platte County?
no, we got to deal with the amendment first, and then we'll deal with.
Mr. Chairman, was it, a-
Okay, so it stays. then. All right.
Question?
Question being called. So we are voting on Duncan Plan 2, which is into Laramie County, Weston Hole, into the Platte County end. So if you vote for West 2, we're amending the plan as done. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion has passed. So with that, we have the Campbell Clerk's plan, which is Region 6, Submission 7. I believe what this does is cleans up somewhat into Sheridan County, and it changes the Kirk County piece out of northern Campbell County and makes it go north and south of I-90 is the way I understand it. Way it was for Kirk went into here, now it goes south of Rosette. So it makes Kirk quite a bit more compact, but changes where they represent now. So questions or discussion? It has not moved yet.
Well, Mr. Chairman, as the senator for that part, does it, you have thoughts, concerns on changing that?
I do have some, and I'm going to tell you what I've had for comments, because I've had some sitting here. I have heard some from some people up in the Sheridan County area. They don't particularly like it. I'll be upfront about it. They sent a letter, I believe, to all the committee. I know I had them resend it to me. They were pretty clear. They're not thrilled with it, with same arguments we've heard earlier. I have heard from several in Campbell County, and it's very similar to the Weston County split. Is there's a big division there. I represent that area. Part of them want to be whole in a county with 5 whole reps. Part of them want to have it look the way it is now. I am somewhat agnostic. For me, it matters, and it's either way it goes, someone's not happy. Doesn't matter which way I vote. But that's kind of where it lays. In Campbell County, I think Representative Greer can do that as well. I know he's visited with people up there. There's definitely a split on how it falls. They have not had a lot of time to vet this, but in truth, we've all looked at that. These plans are all similar. So that's all I can tell you is, as is every other plan we've done today, there's absolutely no consensus on anybody's going to be happy regardless of how it falls. So, Representative Greer.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, I mean, that's where I'm from. I had the opportunity of helping my wife on Friday and Saturday and a lot of basketball games in Claremont during that period of time. Got to talk to a lot of people and I just kind of, as I thought, and I don't think this is going to change, because this is the least worst alternative for the whole state of Wyoming, quite frankly. But we look at the fact that really, so in between on the map, you've got Claremont and Arvada. And by the way, my wife and I are the only 2 people to intermarry between those 2 communities since the school was integrated in 1969. As I thought, the people in Claremont associate with Buffalo or Sheridan, and really once about the time you get the lighter, it's more of an association with Campbell County. So it's not a huge amount folks. I mean, I'm gonna support that. I did ask, and if we could take this small portion
I was about to ask.
of this to bring in what would be the rest of that community of interest. And there really is a community of interest around, Recluse, Spotted Horse, Arvada, Claremont.
That will be considered a
that.
friendly amendment.
Yeah, and it's a nice rural ranching district there. I think it's, in the end, it's not a bad option.
That's friendly to be Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So are there any changes with regard to the districts in Gillette proper?
I can't tell you, but it was done by the clerk. So if there is, it's done by their people to do it right, I believe. Now, I did hear from one of their commissioners that they weren't a part of that. Fair warning. So, it's back to where we're at, but the clerk, the clerk who I believe has worked, and maybe Representative Bear is still around. I think they've worked extensively on how they want those lines. Early plans I'd drawn caused a lot of heartburn because I drew them myself, and I believe that's what this is, an attempt. It's not their first choice. It's exactly what Representative Beer said. This is not their first choice, but if you're gonna, their clerk's online, great. We'll bring them in. That'll save me a lot of explaining.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can, thank you. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm Kendra. I'm the Chief Deputy County Clerk. Clerk Saunders can't be with us today because we're in the middle of changing all of our financials to a new company. So these lines are just trying to keep with what our representatives or our legislators has looked at before. I tried to keep them the same with all of the commissioners and the representatives. They didn't have input on this, but I tried to keep it the same as what they had already looked at. So within these lines, there's always room for improvement. This was just to get us off the starting block with what you guys were requesting.
Thank you. I will tell you, we're going to take a couple-hour break for lunch. So if you have input or whatnot over lunch, this is going to be the final plan that comes out today. So if representatives or commissioners get a hold of you, we're open as long as it fits within the plan to look at that over this couple hours, because this is going to be what goes in front of the committees or the bodies, both sides. So I very much appreciate your work, and I understand how much you and Clerk Saunders have gone through. I've watched literally dozens and dozens of iterations. So I thank you for this. And if there is changes, we're very open to input after lunch.
Okay.
Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And so, Ms. Anderson, is there any other changes besides the Southern Campbell and the Crook dominated House seat? Nothing else inside Gillette and those districts changed?
Yeah, Chairman, they have changed slightly. In order to get the numbers correct, we always have to do a little bit of changes with inside Gillette. Not many, but there are a few changes. And we also have an interesting situation in our city of Gillette. We have little county pods, but they've not been annexed into the city. And you can't really tell them on this map, but oh, what is that? House District 52.
And so
It's
Ms.
House District.
Anderson,
Go ahead.
I'm really looking for anything more than like a 200-person change, or maybe 100 from the map that we have currently to these corrections. I'm not seeing anything that big. I just want to make sure nothing more than, 100-person change happened in those.
There might be something that big to the north of 31, on that border between 31 and 52.
Oh, District 31. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were some changes like that, just because Crook County came over. So then I had to make some adjustments down into our city.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further comments, committee? Okay, we're down to the submission 7, House. This will need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the clerk revision submission 7 at this point
with Representative Greer's.
with the Representative Greer amendment. How many people? There are 30 or so right there at those 2 census blocks, from what I understand, Mr.
What,
Swain.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we move the submission and then I'll bring a separate amendment so
very good.
people can vote on
Okay,
it.
so we got a motion. We don't have a second yet. Second, Representative Yin. Okay, Representative Greer. you have
Yes,
the floor.
so then,
Oh, okay. Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question for the deputy county clerk. Mentioned some county inholdings in the city. That's fairly common. Are those with the county rural district, or are those with whichever of these urban districts that you've drawn? What district are those in?
Are you asking where I just said that there was a lot of changes, what districts those were in?
Well,
there's the question is, who represents the county areas that lay within the city? Is it a rural representative or is it one of the city representatives? I believe, is that what you were
Yeah,
on? Senator
and-
Scott?
And Mr. Chairman, what I'm trying to get at is figure out if we have any non-contiguous islands within the district.
I do not believe that there is any non-contiguous. I did this in Maptitude where you can click on non-contiguous and it'll take you to those areas. And I did try to clean all those up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Greer.
so Mr. Chairman, then I would ask to amend this plan. And the precinct goes all the way down a Cheetah Road. And so this would be splitting a precinct, just to be upfront with the committee. But what I would do is look at where the Sheridan Johnson County line is and move that across of that part that pops up. I think that's going to be pretty close. And in that way, we've got, and actually think of 2 families that where their homes are, less than 200 yards apart, and at least they'll go and vote in the same precinct, and which I think is over at Recluse. But anyway, so that would be my amendment.
Thank you. Ms. Saunders, can you comment on where, because we are splitting a precinct, can you, or not, Ms. Anderson, I'm sorry. Can you comment on splitting the precinct and your thoughts on that?
I need to have at least 1 second.
You got it.
Okay.
Okay, so you're talking up in that area where you were talking earlier up by Sheridan, correct? And you want to split the current precinct, which is our 3-1 precinct? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
Mr. Chairman, I don't know and so the clerk probably knows this as well as I do. I mean, really, I'm looking, sort of trying to get a split either above or below Laramore's homestead. I think Floyd's ought to be able to go south, but looking at Kenny Clayball, and then you come around the Horn, around to Crutchman's off of Middle Prong. So that's what I'm looking at.
Lawyer?
Been through that country is all.
So, Chairman, Representative Greer, we're okay moving the lines on our precincts a little. We anticipated that would happen. We're okay with that. I mean, a line here, a line there, but because that won't cause a split for us.
Thank you.
We just can't really take all the way down a Cheetah Road because there's more than just a few people in there.
And I would agree that wouldn't be appropriate. I mean, you go south of Floyd's, you get into Heinz's ranches down, and I agree. It'd just be that northern tip that associates
It's
north.
pretty clear the way you explained it. You just, for the committee, you look straight on the map there, you see the piece that goes to the north, and just take the purple out and make it go straight across. Pretty clean.
So should we dispose of the First Amendment
Sure.
or the first motion?
Mr. Chairman.
That's all one. Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, just a very technical question, probably for Michael Swank. This is not dividing any census blocks, is it?
Mr. Chairman, none of the maps that we've drawn this interim have split census blocks.
And Mr. Chairman, and just make sure this one doesn't with this amendment.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. And
thank
if I
you.
may, Mr. Chairman, so in a prior break, we looked at using the Achita Road for this particular amendment. I don't know the dividing line southward, but this is what I understand. It would start right here at the border and would go down the Achita Road and bring in this area, but I don't know where the dividing line north or south is. So that was the only thing I would need the clerk's
The
assistance with.
dividing line north and south, as I understand it, I'm going to speak, Representative Greer. If you look at the Sheridan Johnson County line, you just draw it straight across Cheetah Road and go across to the block right there. Representative Claus.
Just a suggestion, but would it be prudent if we drew this so we knew exactly where it was before we make an amendment?
I think that's acceptable. We can come back after lunch with it if there's others, so.
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine. I'm just, most of the people that I'm looking at are those off of Middle Prong that live on either side of Middle Prong. Where you come down on the Achita Road is, yeah, again, they're basically, there's a lot of road between Kenny's place and Laramore's. So it's easy to find a
few dead
spot.
trees.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll hang this till after lunch. We'll have the line drawn. We'll vote right after lunch on it. And then we'll finalize our plans. So it is now 11:39.
Want a motion on the Campbell County Clerk, or we still have a motion on the table, right?
It's on the table, but this is going to be a friendly amendment to it. We're trying to get it where we can see it. What?
I think Representative Greer said second motion, not the same.
You're on the committee of chairman.
All right, so we can vote on the Campbell and then you can bring an amendment after lunch.
But then be good.
Representative Greer.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm fine. I'm in favor of the Campbell County plan. I'm just asking for this amendment. If you want to bring it later after we see it, that's fine.
That was when I was trying, my other chairman was telling me I couldn't.
Well, you have a motion on the floor, so.
No, but we can wait till after lunch. We don't have, it's like debate running over. We'll come with an actual line for the committee after lunch so you can actually see what you're voting on, as Representative Clausen asked. So I think with that, our business is cleaned up. We'll take, it's 11:40. 1:30. We'll come back, gives everybody a chance. So we're adjourned till 1:30. For anyone that's online, if you've got things that you want to change last minute, this is your last chance before the bill comes after lunch. 1:30.